Okay, here we are on part two of the series, The Virgin. Now, what I want to do was address an issue that came up in the comments, which is regarding the passage of Isaiah chapter 7. Many would say that this passage is not a messianic passage. Now, aside from um, the issue of the translation of the word Alma, we can easily just set that issue aside because I'm going to cover that issue a little more later on. But what I wanted to deal with specifically is the fact that Isaiah chapter 7 can very well be seen as a messianic passage. And one of the reasons for that is, well, it's the nature of Jewish prophecy. One of the problems, I think, is that many people get into well, they approach the scriptures in a way that uh, is not in accord with the Jewish mindset. Okay, so what I mean to say is, when we think of prophecy, and especially Christians, I was raised Christian, and I still consider myself Christian. But what I'm saying is this: is that prophecy has been put into this box, which it's kind of like looking at something as a foretelling, or in the same way that, like, Nostradamus, writes down his prophecies, looking for something that is going to be, um, you know, there. In other words, looking for some exactitude in the prophecy. In other words, um, you know, so and so will be born on the 28th day of February. His name will be Henry, and he will be a mighty warrior, and he will be king over England, or something to that effect. But uh, that's not really the nature of Jewish prophecy. Um, Jewish prophecy has to do with something a little bit deeper. It has to do with morality. It has to do with truth, a deeper truth, and specifically, it always is in regard to Israel and the relationship which Israel has with the Lord. Now, that's just a very broad brushstroke that I can give you as far as what it is. But obviously, when we look at these texts, like in Isaiah chapter 7, uh, the context itself obviously has to do with King Ahaz and Isaiah prophesying that an event is going to occur within 65 years. Okay? Now, what that what that means really is that when when we look at the prophecy itself, it seems very likely that the son to be born is a messianic figure in that time period. Okay, so it's very much in regard to a leader, a hero of that time period. So basically, that in itself projects itself into the overall thematic truth of the ultimate Messiah, that is uh, the head of days and the end of days, uh, the supernatural Messiah, the Messiah who exists beyond the veil and is more than just a man. So so with that said, this passage can be applied. Uh, what I'm looking for, and I'll probably bring it up in a later video, is a passage, and I believe it's in the Messiah text of Raphael Patai. This happens to be chapter 17 of that book, which is entitled Messiah ben Joseph. But the text I'm looking for is in regard to the Messiah and how the Messiah fulfills all things. But basically, I believe it's in Sanhedrin where it says that the whole world was made only but for Messiah. And basically the implication being that there were some quotes, I believe, for some Jewish rabbis. I'm not sure what the dates are, but I believe they're like 4th century or somewhere around medieval period or maybe before that. But they basically state in so many words the that the Messiah, the ultimate Messiah, the last Messiah, is going to fulfill all of the previous Messiahs have um, have accomplished. And that is one reason why when you see the title Messiah ben Joseph, which is one of the titles of Messiah, that he's given the title Messiah ben Joseph. In other words, Joseph was a messianic figure, and they're talking about Joseph, the son of Rachel, okay, and basically that there was teaching on this. Basically, a midrash fragment explains that when Rachel finally gave birth, she called his name Yosef, saying, "May the Lord add to me another son." And what the rabbi interjects here in his commentary is, hence we know that the anointed of war will arise in the future from Joseph, or rather descended from Joseph. And so God hath taken away my reproach. So the rabbi interjects, because it was prophesied to her that the Messiah would arise from her. So he basically interjects the messianic meaning into that passage, um, as a Jewish teacher. So, uh, as I was saying, in regard to prophecy, when we look at the prophecy and we say, oh, well, this prophecy, this prophecy in Isaiah chapter 7, it's in regard to King Ahaz, and it's only in regard to the prophet Isaiah, and it's only in regard to the 65 years in which the prophecy that Isaiah has made is going to be fulfilled. Well, yes, that's true, but it's also true that the ultimate Messiah, the supernal figure, the Prince of Peace, who is to come, is going to fulfill all of everything that every other Messiah has accomplished. And that's why Matthew, when he writes his gospel, makes such a big deal about Jesus coming out of Egypt. Why? Because, well, Moses came out of Egypt, and he was a messianic figure, and so therefore Jesus is fulfilling all of the characteristics of every other messianic figure that arises. Okay, so that is basically a real simple explanation as to why Isaiah 7 can be seen as a messianic passage. And that has nothing to do with the uh, meaning of the word virgin. We're not even getting into that right now. All I'm saying is that, yes, the passage can be seen as a messianic passage. And, you know, in regard to like concepts such as Messiah ben Joseph, um, Joseph was a man of suffering. He was thrown in jail. His brothers almost killed him. That kind of a thing. So Messiah ben Joseph was seen as a suffering Messiah, and so then obviously the rabbis turned around and they began to understand that there was a deeper truth going on here about the Messiah, the true Messiah, the Messiah who is projecting himself throughout history here. And so there's that, and also I wanted to point out Matthew chapter 38, which has to do with Jesus talking about the sign of Jonah, which says, "Then some of the scribes and Pharisees said to him, 'Teacher, we want to see a sign from you.' But he answered and said to them, 'An evil and adulterous generation craves for a sign, and yet no sign will be given it but the sign of Jonah the prophet.'" So what was Jesus doing here? He was basically giving them uh, an example of the concept of, a hint, basically that whatever happened in the life of Jonah the prophet, that this is what's going to happen in the life of the Messiah. And so basically, Jesus himself, being the Jewish teacher that he is interjecting here this messianic aspect of Jonah the prophet, because Jonah was a messianic figure. He went to Nineveh, he preached to the people to save them. The people were saved. They actually turned around, they repented. And then Joseph goes through some other instances where he was, swallowed by this great fish, and Jesus is referring to the sign of Jonah. Now, does it say in the book of Jonah that, the ultimate Messiah, the Prince of Peace, is going to live the life of the same things that Jonah the prophet says? No, it doesn't say that. But this is a typical Jewish understanding of what prophecy means. Okay? So, moving on from there, let's go back to my notes so I don't go off here. Um, I'll go ahead and I'll put the link in the description here of this book, the Messianic Texts. And also, this is a great link here. Uh, it's called Response to the Fabulous Prophecies of the Messiah. It's on Christian Think Tank. But this gentleman does a wonderful job of explaining why Isaiah chapter 7 is a messianic passage. And we just skip down to the end here, and you can see what he sums it up to. And he says, basically, it's not all obvious to me, especially in the context of Jewish legal practice, but more on the genealogy issues later. The virgin birth passage is used strictly as a messianic prophecy fulfillment, not as an argument over lineage or sinlessness or human nature or any other things that the church has tried to make it into. The link with the genealogy is strictly locational. In other words, one normally groups material about a common theme, background, and birth together with the same general literary location. There are no explicit links, no alluded to links, no theological links present in the text. To assert otherwise requires at least a little evidence. Basically, conclusion: when the linguistic, historical, literary, and cultural factors are considered in total, it looks messianic to me. If it looks like a duck, it sounds like a duck. So, if you want to read the rest of this article, I highly suggest it. He gets into a lot about, you know, the meaning of the word Alma and such, and it's a good summation. But basically, I was just using this article here to address the issue, which is basically that Isaiah 7:14 is a messianic passage, irregardless of whether uh, the Hebrew word Alma, is referencing virgin or maiden. It's besides the point, really. So I think that sums it up, and so that'll be it for this video. And God bless everyone. Keep seeking truth. Uh, Peace continue to be with you all. Blessings on your family and healing and joy this season. Okay.